Courtrooms are meant to be sanctuaries of order, reason, and justice. But what transpired in Sister Wives Season 20 was far from orderly. What began as a familiar legal hearing soon turned chaotic, bringing to the fore secrets that some believed would never be revealed. At the eye of the hurricane are Kody and Robyn Brown, the formerly vaunted patriarch and his youngest wife, whose perfectly constructed public persona is now unraveling due to one incendiary document, a letter from Garrison Brown. Watchers have followed the Browns through their plural marriage on television for years. From sprawling mansions to strained family dinners, all amidst the glow of reality television stardom. But off camera, there were rumors of a cover-up, favoritism, and backstage politics that never made television. And now sources within the court say Garrison, one of the oldest Brown siblings, has delivered a bombshell that no one could dismiss. The letter, delivered to the judge in an envelope with a seal wrapped around it, is a masterwork of deceit. Garrison's words are biting, exacting, and unforgiving. He claims that Kody and Robyn have been manipulating financial and emotional domination in the shadows, benefiting from the family image for their own purposes and pushing the older children aside. As reported by insiders, the letter has explicit details of transactions behind the scenes, discussions, and situations where Kody reportedly misrepresented the finances of the family, not only to the outside world, but to the family as well. Trial observers report that as soon as the letter was read, the room fell silent. The judge, a veteran family court jurist, apparently hesitated several times, leafing through every page as if the letters themselves weighed decades of unspoken family drama. The lawyers for Kody and Robyn attempted to gloss over the letter, stating that it was biased and emotionally charged. But Garrison's letter, sources at the court reveal, was accompanied by corroborating documents, emails, bank records, and even private texts, a net of proof that was hard to disregard. So why now? Why did Garrison suddenly break his silence in Season 20? As per individuals close to the family, the constant conflicts over property inheritance and rights to the Coyote Pass land ultimately boiled over. For years, Kody and Robyn had been regulating access, imposing who could develop, reside, or even stop by certain properties. And within that conflict, there was Garrison, who had grown frustrated and more outspoken, making a decision that would rock the foundations of the Brown family dynasty. The letter does not simply place blame. It compels the court and the audience to go back and re-examine each season, each argument, each family gathering caught on tape. Moments that were at one point dull or melodramatic for television now carry a whole new significance. The painstakingly constructed tale of the harmonious plural family is coming undone, strand by strand. And with Garrison's voice now being heard, there is no going back. But this is only the beginning. Reading the letter was merely the first act. The aftereffects, the rebuttals, and the clandestine confrontations that ensued within the courtroom are where the real drama takes place. Kody and Robyn, who were once beyond reproach in the minds of fans, are now under intense criticism unlike anything that has ever been seen from the family. And with each new revelation, stakes grow higher. At this juncture, one burning question hangs over the court and the fans: what specifically did Garrison reveal, and how far-reaching are the repercussions? The solution is on the pages of that letter, and in the responses it has evoked among the Browns themselves. And here, at the very brink of disaster, is where Season 20 really starts. The courtroom was on edge as the contents of Garrison's letter came to light. The letter goes far beyond general accusations. It sets out specific examples of financial mismanagement, backroom property transactions, and the ways in which Kody and Robyn purportedly used the money of the family for their own benefit. One of the most sensational claims revolves around the Coyote Pass property. Fans have wondered for years about the monetary burden it placed on the Browns. Garrison charges that Kody and Robyn knowingly misrepresented expenses, secret loans, and construction costs in order to keep control of the property. As his letter describes, money earmarked for maintenance and upgrades of family assets was diverted into individual business schemes. High-end vacations, high-end remodels, and even unnecessary purchases made to pad profiles on hypothetical reality television shows. According to Garrison, judge insiders report the judge was visibly stunned as the letter was read aloud, commenting on the level of specificity Garrison went into. The allegations are not merely financial. They're all about control, favoritism, and manipulation. Garrison apparently chronicles instances in which Kody supposedly pushed siblings to defer to Robyn, bypassing older wives and children in decision, making that impacted all. Legal observers monitoring the hearings maintain that Garrison's letter has sweeping ramifications. If verified, it could impact property ownership decisions, financial responsibility, and even the rights of the senior Brown children to have a say in family affairs. One source called the letter a legal blueprint for revealing decades of covert controversy, a detailed account of every financial and emotional slight, every instance where Kody's power was wielded in dubious means. Fanning the flames, Garrison's letter also mentions confidential exchanges between Kody and Robyn that were never intended to go beyond their immediate group. These messages, testified to in court, show calculated attempts to manipulate family members and even the production staff of the show. It presents a picture of a couple carefully staging their public personas while keeping the family in check behind closed doors. To Sister Wives fans who have been watching the show for years, these disclosures are earth-shaking. Moments previously brushed off as mere on-camera bickering now are fraught with meaning. For instance, arguments over finances, building plans, and even what to have for breakfast now fit into a broader context of control and concealment. The drama of the season is no longer mere entertainment, it is proof. What is so remarkable about Garrison's letter is the tone. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, he uses names, includes dates, and offers details that don't leave much room for denial. And in the process, he places himself as both whistleblower and advocate for the elder Brown children, many of whom have complained about being shut out of family decisions. As the drama of the courtroom plays out, one fact emerges clearly: Garrison's involvement has altered the course of history. Kody and Robyn, who once seemed above reproach, are now on the defensive and have to answer questions that could redefine their family legacy. The rest of the Browns, caught in the middle, they don't know how to get out of a dispute that is now very much in the public eye and legally relevant. The atmosphere is tense. Attorneys huddle, relatives squirm, and the judge considers each complaint with great attention to detail. Every word of Garrison's letter is weighed, every piece of supporting evidence scrutinized, and as this legal battle unfolds, viewers at home are left asking the same question: how much of what we've seen on Sister Wives is real, and how much has been carefully curated for the cameras? As Garrison's letter rocked the courtroom, all eyes turned to Kody and Robyn. The normally composed pair looked visibly upset, sharing nervous glances and whispering with their legal advisors. They had not expected the seriousness of the claims, nor the degree of detail within the letter. Insiders claimed Kody, commonly the patriarchal leader who keeps the reins on family matters, looked out of character in his defensiveness. Courtroom video and eyewitness testimony indicate that he fought to keep his face in check while the judge read passages directly incriminating him in clandestine money moves. Robyn, normally unflappable and reserved, was tense and unusually evasive when asked to react. The point of contention came first in the manner in which Garrison's letter elaborated on the Coyote Pass property drama. According to his account, Robyn allegedly played a central role in decisions that diverted funds from family projects to her personal accounts. Kody, the letter claims, allowed these actions to continue, either unaware or complicit. This allegation strikes at the heart of their public image, a carefully crafted persona of harmony and teamwork. Lawyers for the Browns immediately requested that these portions of the letter be scrutinized for authenticity. They contended that although Garrison did have grievances, some of the claims would be overstated or pulled out of context. The judge did observe, though, that the amount of documentation attached to the letter, emails, receipts, and itemized financial statements, made it impossible to send it packing. Court watchers detail a heated exchange between Kody's lawyer and Garrison's attorneys. The lawyer continued to try to make the letter sound personal opinion or family gossip, but Garrison's team met it head-on by pointing out its factual details. Dates, figures, and precise actions were all carefully chronicled, making the letter more than mere rumor. The courtroom drama reached a boiling point when Garrison's lawyers asked for access to previously sealed financial records. They contended that these documents would substantiate the accusations and demonstrate a pattern of fiscal mismanagement and favoritism towards Robyn. At this point, whispers cascaded through the crowd. This was greater than a standard family conflict. The Browns were confronting a legal tempest with implications. that might be felt in property ownership, family budgets, and public image. Maybe the most surprising disclosure was when the letter outlined confidential discussions between Kody and Robyn about the finances of the family. These messages, in Garrison's opinion, indicated a conscious attempt at keeping other wives in the dark, having a system in which Robyn and Kody scripted both within the family and on television. Court sources indicate that this proof hit close to home, with some of the older Brown kids said to have gasped while the contents were being read out. For viewers of the show, these scenes in court were not to be forgotten. Exchanges of argument and confrontation previously staged on television as plot development were now actualized in real life, supported by official documentation and testimony. The line between reality and entertainment was erased, and the viewers felt a shock and disbelief. Legal experts have opined that Kody and Robyn's reaction in the next few days would be pivotal. How they deal with the charges, what proof they bring forward, and how they respond to the allegations in the public eye may not only decide the fate of the case, but their credibility among the public and the media. Each movement, each utterance in that courtroom was being scrutinized, not only by the judge but by a country of engaged viewers. And as the judge kept reading the letter and supporting documents, one thing was apparent: the dynamics of power within the Brown family and on sister wives had changed radically. Garrison not only uncovered possible financial wrongdoing, but he also unearthed fissures in the meticulously nurtured public persona of Robyn and Kody. The question now was if the couple could bounce back, or if this was the start of a long-lasting legal and personal meltdown. As the court proceedings went on, the focus turned to the other Brown wives, Christine, Mary, and Janelle. Sources within the courtroom described a look of shock, fury, and vindication on their faces. Garrison's letter did more than accuse Kody and Robyn. It offered concrete proof that many of their years-old suspicions were correct. Christine especially seemed relieved and upset. Court watchers said that she had worked quietly to gather her own paperwork in the years since, expecting that Kody and Robyn's money choices might someday be under scrutiny. When passages from Garrison's letter were read aloud, Christine was said to lean forward, telling her lawyer, "Finally, they can't hide behind their lies anymore." Janelle and Mary, however, showed a combination of guarded hopefulness and reserve. They had learned from previous battles involving similar controversies how to navigate the fine line between airing outrage and being believable in court. The two women were cautious not to be too obvious in their reactions, but body language experts monitoring the live broadcast saw micro-expression of tension, clenched jaws, fidgeting in seats, and purposeful note-taking, showing how deeply involved they were with each discovery. The judge, noticing the mounting tension, declared a short recess. That gave everyone a chance to regroup, discuss their cases with their lawyers, and regroup for the next portion of testimony. Yet the courtroom was still electric with expectation. Journalists in the gallery said even the production team for Sister Wives looked disturbed, their normal placid professionalism discomfited by the intensity of the revelations. When business resumed, attention shifted to the defense of Kody and Robyn. Kody testified with a firm but measured voice, protesting any wrongdoing. He maintained that the family's best interest was taken into consideration in the financial decisions and that so-called irregularities were clerical mistakes or misunderstandings. Robyn was of the same opinion, highlighting the fact that she was committed to the family for years and that she had taken on the duties of running the household affairs. Garrison's counsel, on the other hand, responded with an orderly dissection of the supposed discrepancies. They showed timelines, cross-referenced emails, and referenced money transfers that seemed inconsistent with public assertions made by Kody and Robyn on the show. The evidence implied that significant amounts of money had been siphoned for personal benefit, and not to support family projects as alleged. One particularly tense exchange happened when the judge inquired directly of Kody regarding a chain of transactions cited in Garrison's letter. The question, deceptively simple, had monumental import. Did you know that Coyote Pass funds were transferred to accounts held by Robyn alone? Kody's pause was palpable. Court sources afterward said there was a momentary hesitation, followed by a diplomatically phrased denial that fell short of convincing the judge. Coincidentally, Robyn's lawyers tried to play down the letter's importance. They maintained that individual complaints should not be given the same value as established proof, yet it was hard to ignore the supporting materials sent along with the letter. The judge, firmly stating the obvious, reminded everyone that the court's job was to carefully review the evidence, not to care about what anyone thought or what had happened in the past. Outside the courtroom, onlookers speculated on the wider potential impacts on the show. Facebook and Twitter sites lit up with conversations about possible repercussions. Supporters argued if this exposure might alter public opinion about Kody and Robyn, or even the course of Sister Wives Season 20. Observers indicated that the union of courtroom drama and family strife was a rare phenomenon. It muddled the boundaries between reality television entertainment and actual legal repercussions. As the day went on, it was apparent that Garrison's letter was more than just a footnote in the legal drama. It was a catalyst that would set the tone for the Browns' personal and financial futures. The letter revealed secrets, disrupted public opinion, and compelled every member of the family to face painful realities. For audiences, the real-time drama created a particular vision behind reality television's glossy scenes. What were once expertly edited narratives now became raw, unadulterated, and legally recorded. And as the courtroom drama unfolded, the stakes intensified, keeping everyone both in and out of the court on tenterhooks. The tension in the courtroom was ratcheted up as Garrison's letter moved from gross personal attacks to specific financial documentation. The letter contained spreadsheets, bank statements, and step-by-step descriptions of transactions. Sources say, raising grave doubts about Kody and Robyn's handling of the family's finances. The instant the evidence was laid out, the air in the courtroom changed. Reporters heard a distinct gasp of breath from several in the audience, and gallery members leaned forward, anxious not to miss a word. The papers indicated that large sums meant for family upkeep and children's schooling were supposedly diverted to personal indulgences and investments never fully revealed. Christine, intently viewing the presentation, seemed vindicated. Reports had her scanning her own papers surreptitiously, verifying that several of the dealings matched suspicions she had entertained for years. Janelle, on the other hand, showed a combination of incredulity and prudence. She had long avoided courtroom face-offs, recognizing that public response might affect both the law case and their media images on television, the judge poring over the evidence with close attention posed sharp questions to determine the source and intention of a number of transactions. One particular example was an unaccounted for amount of almost $200,000 paid into a private account that was only associated with Robyn. The questioning led Kody to explain the transfers, saying they were family investments or emergency funds, but the papers offered little support. In this segment of the trial, Robyn's demeanor was said to be tense but measured. She remained even-tempered, refuting accusations with technical details regarding financial practices, but lawyers for Garrison responded, stressing that despite procedural justification, the end use of the funds was ethical and potentially legal issues. Outside the courtroom, the drama set the world talking immediately on the internet. Footage of the presentation spread quickly around social media, with viewers analyzing every document and predicting how the bombshell would influence the show as well as the family life. Observers commented that the pairing of personal betrayal and financial malfeasance was uncommon in reality television, giving viewers previously unseen access to the intricate dynamics off-camera. At one point, the judge requested a moment to permit both sides to examine further documents presented in real time. Sources explained that even court clerks and bailiffs seemed surprised at the amount and specificity of the financial documents. It was apparent that the case was much more complicated than first thought, requiring careful attention from everyone involved. Kody, clearly irritated, tried to refocus on his years of contributions to the family and household stability. Robyn reiterated this, emphasizing her contribution today running and asserting that any differences were accidental oversights and not malicious actions. Garrison's group, however, responded with accurate data, revealing patterns that implied deliberate diversion of funds over a long time. A very interesting discovery was luxury goods and unreported expenses that had not been made public on prior public reports or during previous seasons of Sister Wives. From lavish holidays to exclusive educational services, the records presented a picture of financial stewardship that seemed at odds with public assertions by Kody and Robyn. The tension in the courtroom was tense. As the evidence was read line by line, each new discovery seemed to raise the stakes, both legally and personally. Family members exchanged nervous glances, conveying both solidarity and incredulity. Even the judge recognized the atypical intricacy of the case, observing that such in-depth financial examination was an exception in cases involving family-owned estates. As the day was ending, it was apparent that the bombshell testimony in Garrison's letter had forever changed the dynamic of the courtroom. Undefined, what started as a letter written on a personal matter had become a pivotal piece in a battle waged by the law with broad-reaching consequences. The next day, the courthouse opened again with an air heavy with tension. Cameras had flooded the exterior, filming the reactions of supporters, and social media was abuzz with gossip about the money trail exposed in Garrison's letter. Within, the air of tension between Kody, Robyn, and opposing counsel hung thick, as if each look carried centuries of unresolved tension with it. The court began with Garrison's lawyers explaining a timeline of the supposed financial imbalances. Every date and transaction was laid out in precise detail, and the lawyers adeptly linked these times to choices made by Kody and Robyn both personally and professionally. Witnesses commented that the meticulous detail allowed little space for doubt, constructing a narrative that portrayed the couple in starkly highlighted terms. Christine was summoned to offer testimony. Her control was impressive. Although an instant of feeling passed across her face when she described money she insisted was siphoned off from the family. She testified to the pain of betrayal as a wife, and also as a mother, reiterating that mismanagement had spilled over into the stability and future of the children. Her testimony was powerful in the courtroom, earning murmurs of sympathy from the spectators. Janelle testified second. Her testimony addressed Kody and Robyn's patterns of decision-making, noting times when it appeared financial and personal choices benefited them while hurtful to the other family members. Janelle's style was moderate, and she documented her points with evidence, supporting the validity of the case. Kody and Robyn's defense centered predominantly on excuses and rationalizations. Kody continually emphasized his intentions to have been in the best interests of the family, citing investments and home projects he insisted needed discretion and quick decision. Making Robyn had similar sentiments, claiming her actions were in line with her responsibilities in overseeing day-to-day functions. Despite that, Garrison's lawyers refuted every assertion with tangible evidence. Screenshots, emails, and accounting books were introduced as evidence that money had been spent in ways inconsistent with Kody and Robyn's accounts. The lawyers pointed to patterns indicating intended misrepresentation, not an accident, posing an increasingly difficult task for the defense to harmonize. The emotional heightened when there was in Garrison's letter previously unrevealed correspondence between Kody and business partners. These letters purported to expose discussions of strategic monetary decisions that favored individual enrichment at the expense of family well-being. As the documents were being read aloud, both Robyn and Kody shifted restlessly in their seats, and an almost imperceptible but unmistakable passing of glances reflected increasing apprehension. Audience members and court reporters reported that the tone in the courtroom became vastly different at this juncture. It was no longer a question of unsubstantiated claims. The evidence produced was concrete and supported several assertions made by family members in previous testimony. The seriousness of the case was undisputed, and the feeling of impending judgment hung in the air heavily. The judge, in tight rein on proceedings, broke for clarification intermittently. The questions were intended to determine not only the transactions themselves, but also the intent of the transactions. Legal observers observing outside the courthouse commented that this direction of questioning implied a potential finding of mismanagement liability with potential civil and criminal consequences. By mid-afternoon, tensions had grown to the point where Kody's efforts to interject were met with stern rebukes from the bench. Robyn, though quieter, seemed more and more defensive, delivering explanations in quick succession that were tightly questioned by both lawyers and the judge. Sources later referred to the courtroom as a pressure cooker, in which each utterance was imbued with great importance. As the day ended, each side asked to have time to prepare for the next day's session. Media sources were already describing the events as the most explosive revelations in Sister Wives history, with the observation that Garrison's letter had radically changed the direction of the legal case. Within the family, the emotional tension was palpable, with hushed words and urgent glances suggesting cracks that would never be completely repaired. The stage was finally set for the next dramatic act, cross-examinations that promised to unveil even more bitter layers of hostility, unmasking both calculation and individual grievances with unbridled ferocity. The following morning, the courtroom was charged. Reporters filled the corridor, and fans jammed the stairs outside, waiting for any news inside. There was an almost palpable tension. Everyone was aware that the cross-examinations would be the turning point. Kody went into the stand first. His attorney began by focusing on his decades-long role as a provider and father, portraying him as a man wrongly accused by an attention-seeking son. But soon enough, the other lawyer blew apart that myth. The opening question was a whopper. "Mr. Brown, can you tell me why family money was used to buy a mortgage in Robyn's name alone?" Kody paused. He fiddled with his tie, trying to come up with words. "It was for the benefit of the family," he replied at last. "We wanted stability." The lawyer probed. Stability for whom? Because by these accounts, the money had originated from a joint account. But the other wives were not even mentioned anywhere on the deed. A shiver ran through the courtroom. Even Robyn was uncomfortable. As the examination went on, Kody's frustration became more apparent. He protested loudly, attempted to steer, but the attorney was even-tempered, systematically laying out evidence that refuted each defense. Each time Kody said he had done something by consent, there was an email or message read aloud indicating that Christine or Janelle had protested. Then came the most devastating question. "Mr. Brown, did you or did you not inform Robyn that having the money in your hands would keep the family in line?" The room went quiet. Kody's gaze shifted to Robyn. "It is out of context," he said at last, but the hesitancy in his tone said otherwise. When Robyn testified on the stand, the tone changed from defensive to emotional. Her lawyer attempted to present her as a mother torn between two parents losing their hold on her, but the defense counsel displayed papers signed in her name, purchase receipts, transfers, and transactions that directly connected her to the contested money. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I didn't want this," she said softly. "I was doing what Kody believed was right." It was a whispered admission, but the courtroom listened well enough. By day's end, the judge appeared visibly exhausted. The reality was growing more difficult to ignore, and for Robyn and Kody, the picture they had constructed through years of television celebrity was finally falling apart. The courtroom was abuzz even before the proceedings started. Sometime in the night, word had circulated online that evidence would be unveiled, something Garrison's attorneys had been keeping secret. When the judge brought everything to order, the atmosphere was charged. Even Kody, typically boisterous and demanding, remained quiet, his jaw clenched. Robyn gripped her hands, eyes locked on the table before her. The first to testify was neither a relative nor a friend, but a short-term accountant who had worked briefly for the Browns as they relocated to Flagstaff. Calm and professional, she outlined how she was being asked to take over various accounts that appeared to commingle personal and business finances. "I complained about transparency," she stated, her tone even. "But my contract was terminated suddenly after I requested to view full statements." The judge shifted forward. "Did you ever get an explanation for your dismissal?" "No, Your Honor," she responded. "But soon after, I realized my access to the accounts was taken away, and the accounts were reorganized under a new business name, one that was registered under Robyn Brown's name." The courtroom gasped. Kody's lawyer jumped up in objection, but the judge permitted the testimony, observing that the documents supported her assertion. Then came the bombshell. Garrison's team asked to play a brief audio recording. It was recorded from a phone call between Kody and another family member, allegedly more than a year prior. On tape, Kody's voice was unmistakable. He had discussed keeping certain assets in safe hands and how the others don't need to know everything. The playing of the tape was quick, but the reaction was quick too. Kody's face reddened, and Robyn visibly flinched, Christine, a few rows away, gazed down at her lap, and Janelle's lips grew into a thin line. When confronted about the tape, Kody declared it was edited and taken out of context. But the harm was done. The judge directed the clip to be entered into evidence and requested the unedited version too. Outside, the news traveled in minutes. Social media went into meltdown, fans analyzing every second of the recording, others calling for TLC to make a statement. At home, the family sat in silence. For the first time, it wasn't about money or assets. It was about trust, loyalty, and the agonizing truth that years of denial were coming apart before their very eyes. The courtroom fell silent when the judge reconvened the next morning. The recording the day before had stunned everybody, but what followed would propel the whole trial into pandemonium. Garrison's attorney got up slowly with a thick folder in his hand. "Your Honor," he started. "This is the last part of Garrison Brown's letter, together with attachments not yet read into the record." The judge nodded, and the attorney went on. "Among these documents are handwritten messages, text messages, and screenshots that document direct communication between Robyn and financial planners. They make mention of the hiding of money from other siblings and document steps being taken to keep Christine and Janelle out of joint accounts." The response was swift. Robyn's lawyer protested, asserting the documents were unverified private correspondence. But the judge sustained the objection, saying the metadata had been authenticated by forensic analysts. When the first message flashed on the screen, you could sense the air being sucked out of the room. In it, Robyn purportedly wrote, "Kody said not to tell the others until everything is finalized. We can't afford to have them back out of the deal." The timestamp coincided with the same time when the family was discussing if they should sell some of the Coyote Pass property. Kody turned white. He massaged his temples, uttering something inaudibly under his breath. Robyn looked away, her hands shaking a little, as she held a water bottle. The lawyer kept reading from Garrison's letter. It was direct, simple, and emotionally controlled. A son attempting to bring truth to light. "This isn't about revenge," he wrote. "It is about honesty. They made everything about unity, but in the secret places of their lives, there were lies. We had the right to know what was real." Christine started quietly sobbing in her seat. Janelle leaned over and put a hand on her arm. Even Mary, who had been aloof for the majority of the hearing, appeared shaken. When the attorney for Garrison finished reading, the judge ordered a recess. The courtroom exploded. Reporters made a dash for the doors, snapping their cameras as they went, while Kody and Robyn remained seated, flanked by their lawyers. Both of them remained silent. Outside, the throng was abuzz. Some screamed in outrage, others in shock. It was no longer a family trial. It was now a national spectacle. Inside, one question hung thick in the air. If Garrison had discovered this much, what else had been concealed all along? The mob outside the courthouse was more raucous than ever as proceedings continued. Newsmen yelled out questions, microphones thrust into anyone emerging from the courtroom. Within, though, it was hushed and somber. The judge entered with a curt slap of the gavel, order restored as both sides braced for what was to be the most enlightening testimony yet. "Call your next witness," the judge intoned. Garrison's lawyer stood. "The prosecution calls Madison Brown to the stand." The room stirred immediately. Madison, Kody, and Janelle's daughter had been outspoken in the past, but few expected her to testify. Calm and composed, she walked to the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and took the oath. Her testimony began softly. "I didn't want to be here," she admitted, "but Garrison asked me to be honest if it ever got to this point, and it has." She spoke of years of tense silence in the family, how money conversations always ended in secret, and how any questioning was pushed aside. "It was always, 'Don't worry about it. Robyn and I are taking care of it,'" she said, her eyes flicking briefly toward her father. "Except, it never actually felt like we. It was always them." The lawyer gave her a printed chain of emails. Madison had indeed been CC'd on it years ago by mistake. In the correspondence, Robyn seemed to be negotiating moving money from accounts designated production expenses and family maintenance. The figures were big, tens of thousands in one go. "Did you ever talk to your father about these emails?" the lawyer inquired. "I did," Madison said softly. He said it was complicated, that I wouldn't get it. She stopped. I think he just didn't want me to. Robyn gazed down, not meeting anyone's eyes. Kody sat stiffly, his eyes fixed rigidly forward, his jaw clenched. The testimony went on to cover how Garrison stumbled upon irregularities while assisting with family finances during the pandemic. Madison assured that Garrison had expressed himself to her prior to penning his letter. He wanted to think there was a misunderstanding, she explained, but every door that closed every time he asked questions. By the conclusion of her testimony, the courtroom was absolutely silent. The judge thanked her, and as she stepped down, Kody finally broke his silence, murmuring, "You don't understand what you've done." But Madison didn't look back. The silence that followed Madison's exit was thick and uneasy. The judge called for a brief recess, but Kody remained seated, his face red, his fists clenched on the table. Robyn whispered something to him, but he shook his head sharply. Cameras from the press pool zoomed in. Every twitch, every grimace now broadcast nationwide. When court resumed, Kody's attorney tried to regain control, insisting the family's finances were misunderstood, not misused. But before he could finish, Kody suddenly stood up. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. "You're turning my family against me. This isn't justice, it's revenge." The judge banged the gavel. "Mr. Brown, sit down." Kody held his breath, panting, then fell back into his seat. The tantrum caused a ripple in the courtroom. Even Robyn seemed shocked. The other attorney remained calm. "Your Honor, these aren't strangers' accusations. These are your own children, your own financial statements. This is not a case about revenge, it is one of accountability." Kody didn't say anything. He simply gazed at the letter on the evidence table, the one Garrison wrote. The son who wasn't present to defend himself in person, but whose words meant more than anyone could have anticipated. For an interminable moment, no one said a word. The mood had changed again. It was no longer about money. It was about a father coming to terms with the harm done by years of secrecy and control. Robyn dried her eyes, mouthing prayers to herself. Christine sat silently, folded arms, and Janelle averted her face, unreadable expression. What happened after the judge took his afternoon break was evident in the courtroom. Something permanent had occurred. Kody had lost not only his cool, but the sympathy of practically everyone in the room. The next day, the courtroom was subdued. The shouting, the noise, the tearful testimony, all of it had exhausted them. But everyone was aware of what was to come next. The last witness had been cleared overnight, and sources said this testimony was likely to seal the case. When the name was called out, the room agitated. "Call Leon Brown," the court instructed. A buzz ran through the gallery. Leon, Mary, and Kody's son, had avoided the public drama for years, but now they were here, composing themselves, unruffled, and willing to testify. "I've remained silent because I didn't want to fan the flames," Leon testified. "But what I observed was a pattern of control and manipulation, particularly when it came to money." They described how Robyn had become the gatekeeper for everything of importance since she'd become a part of the family. Even little things, medical expenses, questions about properties, had to pass through her, and if you questioned that, Robyn would call you disloyal. As Leon testified, the courtroom went quiet. Robyn's eyes welled with tears and Kody's jaw clenched again. Leon explained how he overheard people talking about moving money and keeping some accounts apart for security. They confessed they didn't realize the extent at the time, but looking back, it was obvious that secrecy was the family way. Ignore case asked Leon about Garrison's letter. Leon's tone became softer. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone, he just wanted the truth. He wanted to keep us safe. The judge nodded slowly, looking visibly moved. By the time Leon left the stand, even Kody seemed defeated. The testimony had been clear, sincere, and impossible to ignore. The courtroom, once a war zone, now felt like the final shot of something much greater. A family dynasty crumbling under the burden of its own lies. The courtroom was packed when the judge came back onto the bench. Everyone recognized this was the moment. Moment of reckoning following weeks of testimony, evidence, and emotional breakdown. Even the air seemed heavy, as if the walls awaited what would be next. Judge Harlan pushed up her glasses, surveyed the files, and addressed them clearly. After consideration of the evidence, testimony, and financial information submitted, This court believes there is sufficient cause to proceed with formal charges against Robyn of financial impropriety and breach of fiduciary responsibility. A collective gasp swirled around the room. Robyn had her hand over her mouth, shaking her head back and forth. Kody sat stock, still, his eyes locked on the front of the desk. For once, he didn't protest. The judge continued, "Those findings are not a definitive opinion but suggest a likely cause for full civil review and possible criminal referral." Outside in the newsroom, journalists scrambled to break the news. Headlines were already in development. Judge rules against Kody and Robyn in explosive sister-wives case. The news exploded like wildfire. Inside, Christine and Janelle shared a subdued, tearful glance. It wasn't happiness, it was relief. Years of suspicion and silence had finally resulted in accountability. Robyn leaned forward against Kody, saying something too quiet to hear. He didn't react. His color was pale, his face unreadable. Then the judge spoke to the family outright. "This court favors mediation and openness from here on out, but know this, further concealment or interference will result in consequences." The gavel came down. The gavel's sound was definitive, ringing through the courtroom like a closing door. As Kody and Robyn prepared to exit, the horde outside exploded in queries. Camera lights strobed, journalists yelled, but neither of them uttered a word. For the first time, the duo who had dominated the family story had nothing more to say. Where the echo of the gavel dissipated, the courtroom cleared in virtual silence. Cameras tracked every move as Kody and Robyn stepped out, accompanied by lawyers who appeared no less tired. The group outside was persistent, questions being hurled, flashes illuminating, but neither would respond. They stepped into an awaiting car and disappeared down the road, faces masked behind tinted windows. Inside, Christine, Janelle, and Mary stayed behind. None of them said anything initially. The years of mutual suffering, competition, and silent bitterness had boiled down to this: a courtroom, a letter, the truth that none of them could deny. Christine ended the silence at last. "He'll never own up," she murmured. Janelle nodded silently. "He doesn't need to. The truth's already in the air." For Mary, the moment was bittersweet. Although distant from Kody for so long, a part of her recalled the family that they used to be, the dream they had attempted to share together. "We all had a role," she whispered, "but some of us quit pretending sooner than others." Outside, news anchors replayed every bombshell. The headlines came in waves. "Sister Wives Scandal Extends," "Brown Family Money Under Scrutiny," "Garrison's Letter Shifts the Whole Narrative." Within hours, footage from the hearing filled up social media. Fans analyzed each facial reaction, each sigh, each hushed interaction between Kody and Robyn. TLC stayed mum, giving only a quick statement regarding ongoing family and legal issues. But a production insider confirmed that the new season would tackle the court case head-on. Undefined, the network understood it couldn't turn a blind eye to what just happened in real life. Garrison's letter became something bigger than proof. It was a tipping point, a letter that broke illusions, revealed secrets, and made everyone confront what had been kept behind the camera for years. That evening, Christine sent a brief statement on social media. "Truth always finds its way to the light." It became viral within hours, shared thousands of times by fans who had been following the family for more than a decade. And although the judicial process was far from being concluded, the verdict in the court of public opinion had already been made. The empire founded upon unity, faith, and family had collapsed, not with a struggle, but with a letter from a son who simply wanted the truth. The Brown legacy would never be the same.